let's get started, okay? We're gonna talk about my love life today, you guys. Oh my gosh. So, pop some popcorn, pour yourself a little mocktail or a cocktail, and let's get into it. Because it's a wild story and it's a wild ride. So, let's get into it. So those of you who've been here for a while know that I got a divorce 7 years ago, and I have been in this interesting era ever since. Crazy to me, because when everything first went down, I was shocked at how many people were like, get on a dating app, get on a dating app. I mean, like weeks right after everything. And I by no means was ready. I was nowhere near ready. I was like, what? So I started dating and got married really young. So showing my age, dating apps weren't even really a thing. I mean, maybe they were, but like I was never on dating apps. So I got married really young. I was never on dating apps. I was very much so one of those people that had like one boyfriend or two boyfriends, and like I didn't date a lot. So being newly single 7 years in, oh child, when I tell you, it was crazy. Once I decided I was ready to start dating again, everyone was like, try Tinder. I didn't know any of the dating apps. Like I'd never heard of any of them. I've never been on them. So I'm like, my little dumb butt was like, okay, everyone says get on Tinder. So I'm like, okay, pretend this is my phone. I'm like, download Tinder. So I download Tinder and I'm just like, okay, I guess I make a profile. Within, you guys, I'm not kidding, within like 5 minutes of being public on Tinder. Granted, this was like 7 years ago. So this was not recent. This was like 7 years ago. I got like 5 or 6 messages from people asking for, I was like, you know, little miss sheltered, polite, like, okay, I'm gonna meet like nice men on this app who were gonna ask me out. And this guy, within like 5 minutes of me talking to him, was like, so do you want to go? Yeah, horrified. So I immediately delete Tinder. I was like, Tinder is not for me. And I go back into hiding for like another couple months because I'm like, this is too much, I'm not ready. I was out with a girlfriend and we were just randomly a little tipsy. We did not drive, don't worry. We definitely were safe, we Ubered there. Anyway, we were tipsy and she was like, girl, we should just make you a profile on this dating app I've heard of called Bumble. And I was like, Bumble? What's Bumble? I've never heard of Bumble. And mind you, this is not recent, this was like 5-6 years ago. So she's like, well, I've heard it's a really good dating app, blah, blah, blah. So we like drunkenly make me a dating app just for fun. I'm like, I'm not even gonna do anything with it. And then the next day I end up getting like all these messages and I'm like, this is really fun. And you know how you experience, anyone who's been on a dating app, you experience that first rush. The first rush you get of all these messages and all these people that are reaching out, and it's just like kind of fun. I think people don't really talk about is like, when you've come out of a relationship where you didn't experience a ton of love and you were with someone who wasn't as emotionally available, you are like instantly like a leech when you start to get attention or love or anything like that. So of course I got all this attention and I was just like, yes. So I go on a date, and I'm not going to get into tons of details because I want to be respectful, but let's just say I started dating a guy who was not the best. Came across as like one way, and then down the road realized that, you know, this person just had a lot of unhealed mental illness and like some drug issues. It was a lot. So then I was like, okay, I'll take a little bit of a break. And then I decided to get back. For me, dating apps were the worst. I kept getting on them thinking that I was going to find the perfect guy, when really what I needed to do was actually completely heal. And even though I thought I was healing and I was in therapy and I was doing all this stuff, I really wasn't in a place where I should have been dating. I really thought I was good, but I was still very much so attracting toxic people. Now, let me just say this. If you are feeling like you're in the same position right now where you're like, I'm on this healing journey and I want to attract different people, but I'm attracting crappy people, does that mean I'm not healing? It doesn't. Crappy people will date everybody. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're like attracting someone, you know, because you're not doing something right. It just means that sometimes bad guys see great people and they're like, oh, let me leech onto them. And if you don't have boundaries and you are like a leech and sucking up all that attention, you won't be able to see clearly. So let me just say I wasn't seeing clearly. So after several crappy relationships where I stayed and was just like, this is awful, like really bad stuff, you guys. I have stories for days. I dated this one guy who I eventually found out had a whole wife, like a whole wife that he just didn't mention. And I found out, thankfully, because I am like Sherlock Holmes, and I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like crazy things that really left me very damaged, unfortunately, had to do even more healing. So I'm here to tell you, just wait, okay? If you're in a place of healing right now and you're just like, oh, I'm lonely, I just want to start dating, please just wait. Because when you're not completely there, you will end up dating crappy people. Now, I'm not at all saying you have to be completely healed in order to date or to have love. You don't, but you do need to be healed enough to be able to decipher what's good and what's crap. So I just couldn't let it go. You know, I was just like, would have moments where I was like, okay, I'll be single. And then I'd go back to dating apps and, you know, date. So, story time. When I was in my dating era, this was right before I decided to just completely be done with dating for a while, a whole year, over a year actually, and just stop altogether. I went on a slew of dates with these random people from dating apps. And there was this one guy that I went on a date with. Our first date was pretty good, and I was like, okay, cool. So he reaches out for a second date, and I was like, you know, that sounds great. So it was a Saturday. You guys, this is the most embarrassing dating story of all times. So it was a Saturday, and I had a busy day. It was like the day that my clothing partnership I was doing with a local clothing store was launching, and I had like a whole thing that morning, and I ended up having several glasses of champagne. And so anyway, my date with this guy wasn't until like 7 o'clock at night. So I planned my whole day around it. I was like, I will make sure that I'm ready. You know, my launch party was in the morning. I was like, I'll have time to nap, come home. So I go to the whole party. I come back home and I like lay out my outfit. I set my alarm. Actually, no, I didn't set an alarm because I was like, I'm just going to read. So I grab a book and I'm like, I'm just going to relax and read for a minute. And y'all, when I tell you, I woke up and it was pitch black. I slept through the date, you guys. Apparently showed up, rang the doorbell, and I was so out of it. I was so knocked out that I slept through it. Of course, I text, I call, he doesn't answer, and I was like so mortified. Like, who does that? Who sleeps through a freaking date? I was just dead tired. It was like the most single mom thing of all times. And I felt like the biggest loser. I actually cried. I was like, this is embarrassing. Like, I'm trying to find love. I'm trying to go on dates. I'm too tired. I slept through the freaking date. So anyway, I eventually get through to this guy like a couple days later. And I like profusely apologize. I didn't even lie. I didn't make anything up because I'm like, I'm just going to be honest, and hopefully he knows I'm being honest, because I mean, if I wasn't honest, I would make up a better excuse. But I literally told him, I was like, I'm so sorry, this is so embarrassing, but I just like had a really busy weekend and I just completely slept through it. I didn't even mean to fall asleep. And I was just like so honest, and he was really nice about it. So I agreed to plan another date to make up for it. I was like, I'll plan this whole date. I'll take care of everything to make up for this. But something in me was like, Britt, maybe the date didn't work out for a reason. Like, maybe the universe was like, for a reason. But no, me being the stubborn person that I am, and also just being a perfectionist, and was like, I just can't have this happen. I was like, I'm going to force this. So I ended up planning this whole date. We try again. And the first part of the date was fine. We go to dinner. I picked out this really cute place. Then we go get drinks. Actually, no, we get drinks, then we go to dinner. And like, I notice him drinking, but I'm like, he's a firefighter. So I'm like, assuming he can hold his like alcohol. I don't know what being a firefighter has to do with it, but he's just drinking, and then he just keeps drinking. And I notice he's getting a little more loose. Let me just say, this guy turns out to be a complete asshole, like a complete idiot. By the end of the date, I'm almost like, should I even drive home with him? Because he definitely had too much to drink. And he's just flapping at the gums. He's just like talking about like why men need women. It's just the most misogynistic, like awful. Like, I literally went to the bathroom and cried. It was so bad that the bar that I go to, because we ended up at one of these bars at the end. This was when I still drank, so this was not current. Anyway, we ended up at this bar that I always go to, and the bartenders, I love them. They're like, they have my back, and the one bartender was looking at me kind of like, are you good, girl? Like, do I need to step in? Because she was looking at my facial expression, because this guy turned out to be such an idiot. Anyway, after that, y'all, I was done. I was like, okay, this is done. And it just reminded me that like, I feel like the universe was trying to say, like, this guy's an idiot. Yes, you fell asleep. You slept through the date because subconsciously you shouldn't have even gone on the date. But of course I didn't listen. I had to find out the hard way. So yeah, after this guy, I was like, that's it. I'm done. This is like so terrible. Guys are awful. I'm over this. And that's where I decided to just be single for like a while. And so what is the point of me telling you guys this? I don't know. I don't really know the point, other than like I didn't really get to tell you all of these things because I was going through them, and now I feel like I'm talking to a bunch of girlfriends and telling them like what really happened. And it is tantalizing now, but let me just say, if you're in the same position where you're leaving a toxic relationship and you're just feeling like lonely and like you don't want to do the healing work, but you want to date and you don't know what to do, and guys are just whatever, and I just want to say this: focus on you and focus on what you need to do for you, and the rest will happen. I am now in a really beautiful relationship, and I have so much to, the reason why I'm laughing is because I have so much to say about that, because I feel like a lot of times people don't tell you that once you are in a healthy relationship, there's a bunch of other work you have to do on the other side. So that's it for another video. But there is hope and there is healthy, beautiful love. But it is something that you will only get by working on yourself. And I did not understand that until I finally did the journey. I was like, why do people keep saying this is the most cliche thing I've ever heard? Every person's like, you'll find love and you work on yourself. And I'm like, that's so dumb. I do work on myself. And that, like, hear me when I say it. I'm not trying to say if you haven't found love, that means you're not working on yourself or you haven't worked on yourself enough. I'm just saying, when your focus is you and your life, not in a self-centered way, but like things that bring you life, bring you joy, bring you happiness, when you're focused on that truly, I don't know what it is, but like love just does come. And like, not to say if you're doing all that, that you're, and love doesn't come, that you're not, it's something wrong with you, but there's just something really, really, attractive and beautiful and amazing about that. And not to, let's just say, like, when your focus is that, you're so focused on yourself and on those things that you don't feel like you're missing out. I don't know how to explain it, but I couldn't make this video until I was ready to make it. And now I feel like my credibility is like not credible because I'm not single anymore, but I would have said this exact same thing. I really would have, because I was planning to stay single. That's how happy I was for years. I really was like I did not plan on being in a relationship. I went from being really miserable and feeling like I didn't want to be alone to being really happy alone, because there's a huge difference between being alone and being lonely. And I'll say that again. There's a huge difference between being alone and being lonely. There have been times where I have been in relationships and I felt the most lonely I've ever been. But I've been physically in a relationship, but I felt so lonely. And then there's been, on the flip side, other times where I have been physically alone, but I felt so much abundance and did not feel lonely. I felt so full, even though I was physically alone and like not dating anyone. So I just want to encourage you that your status, single, married, whatever, divorced, that does not define your credibility in life and your success. It's so sad that, but as women, so much of our identity is wrapped around our marital status, and it used to be necessary because back in the day, if you weren't married as a woman, you couldn't own property, you couldn't do anything, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't get a job. So back in the day, it was like, yes, you needed to be married in order to have power. Now it doesn't, well, that's a whole nother story. We kind of have reverted back in a lot of places, but as women, we don't need men in that way anymore. But unfortunately, society, we still are set up into this place of feeling like our worth is in relationships. And I'm just here to tell you, you are just as worthy, whether you have a boyfriend, husband, girlfriend, best friend, whatever it is, because the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And I know that's so cliche and it's like, what? But it is so true. And as someone who has spent so much of my life chasing after, you know, happiness, chasing after relationships, chasing after people pleasing, all these things, it always comes back to you. It always comes back to you. So anyway, if you made it through this whole video, I don't even know what the point of it was. I hope you got something out of it. My love life was crazy, not necessarily something I planned to be crazy. I feel like I should write a book about it. Maybe I will eventually. But all that to say, I'm happy to be on the other side, and I'm going to continue sharing more and more from my journey. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will talk to you on the next video. Bye!